This is KMCV Channel 7, the only local channel covering all of the CNMI.
If you step away from the TV, you will miss some important stories.
Here's a quick look at tonight's newscast. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals says the Inspector General's office has the right to inspect locally generated tax records.
And Rota Mayor Prudencio Manglona goes on the record saying his hiring practices are legal and readjustments allow him to have year-end operating funds.
The total is in for the assistance handed out to islanders in the wake of flooding caused by the recent passage of Tropical Storm Steve.
We'll be flooding you with all of those stories and much more next on KMCV News.
Buenas noches para todos hamzu tata saipan luta zantinian guahu si Carlotta de Leon Guerrero.
Half a day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Thursday edition of KMCV News. I'm Glenn Wakai. We'll have weather and sports in just a few minutes, but a taxing issue tops our newscast. The CNMI lost the battle but won the war. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decided the Inspector General can audit your tax records, but the judges also clarified the issue of self-government in the CNMI. 8 months ago, Governor Lorenzo de Leon Guerrero appealed an IG subpoena on local tax records. The books will be opened to the Inspector General. Federal officials will soon be combing through local tax records to ensure federal funds are being spent responsibly and the taxes are being collected properly. The CNMI argued that was an infringement on self-government. Although the Ninth Circuit sided with the Inspector General, Lieutenant Governor Benjamin T. Manglona says the judges provided important guidelines for the federal government.
For the first time in our history, the Ninth Circuit Court affirmed some of the self-government issues that we would like to hear and see interpreted.
In the past, the federal government argued many cases on the basis of the territorial clause, which gave it plenary authority over the Northern Marianas, meaning it could do what it wanted in the CNMI.
Because in future cases, we now have a test as to whether a federal statute applies. We hope we don't have to hear federal litigators telling us, hey, territorial clause, therefore any federal statute can flow through that territorial clause into the Commonwealth. This court set that argument aside.
Attorney Howard Willis presented the oral arguments in San Francisco on behalf of the Commonwealth. He says the decision emphasizes the U.S. government has a substantial interest in local matters.
Because if federal interest, financial interests are involved, it looks as though substantial federal authority is going to have to be accepted.
The CNMI will cooperate with the Inspector General. Manglona says no appeal will be made to the U.S. Supreme Court because the Ninth Circuit decision has mandated confidentiality.
We want to make sure that although the Inspector General can audit, they must exercise very careful discretion not to disclose unnecessarily individual taxpayers that may tend to embarrass individual taxpayers.
Tomorrow we'll examine how the Ninth Circuit Court decision could affect other issues between the CNMI and the federal government.
The language of the budget compromise is itself compromising the possibility of the budget. Yesterday, Senate President Juan Demapon said the Senate is giving up their stance on the full-time employee issue. Only the disagreement over programming authority stood in the way at that point. But when budget negotiations resumed this morning, Congressman Pete Rages says the FTE controversy resurfaced.
No. They're trying to color a floor amendment with fancy legal footwork to also give them the FT. They continue to pursue the FT issue, and we continue to say, no, we're not going to agree.
The House and Senate legal counsels must now iron out the wording of two issues instead of one, reprogramming authority and FTEs.
Much of the blame for the fiscal year 93 budget delay has been laid at the doorstep of the Rota Mayor's office. Mayor Prudencio Manglona says his hiring practice of dividing one job among several people is a common procedure. It's a means of utilizing his personnel budget, which was slashed by $200,000 in 1991. Today, Manglona spoke to us from Rota.
I try my best to manage my office to conserve or to have surplus funding in order to see that at the end of the fiscal year I can operate. This is a fact that when there's a vacancy in the mayor's office, I freeze it. It is very unfortunate to say that 3 of the mayor's important positions which have been vacated because of 3 deaths during this fiscal year. There are 2 retirees that I do not fill their position right away. And I tried to restructure and reprogramming this funding to the lower level. I have no intention that I program this for the sake of making a surplus funding. It is very unfortunate that whenever there's a disagreement in the legislature, especially to the representative of the Rota Center district, they came around, accused the mayor. But I was sure my family here and my people that I'm doing the best to serve them. I'll never make them bend down. With my political career, I try my best to best serve the people of Rota, and I'm sure that I did what they want me to do.
Manglona has been the mayor of Rota for 16 years. He steps down from his office in January due to a restriction on the number of terms a mayor can serve.
Financial worries are looming over several Saipan residents and businesses recovering from Tropical Storm Steve. Nanette Miranda reports that the next few days are crucial for the disaster victims because they'll find out whether money will be on its way.
With 20 inches of floodwaters from Tropical Storm Steve comes a deluge of federal relief. The United States Small Business Administration has received almost 150 requests for low-interest disaster loans to help Saipan residents and businesses recover from the flood damage.
The majority of the damage primarily has occurred to roofs, where we see a lot of leakage coming in from the stress of the water coming into the home. Also a lot of damage to the flooring and subflooring. Also where water came into the home, their personal property was destroyed as far as or damaged, such as furniture, mattress, beddings, carpeting, that kind of stuff.
The Federal Disaster Loan Program is designed to help business owners and people like the Morano family in Azalito repair their home and replace their belongings.
We try and process them as quickly as we can, only because of the need and the urgency to help people, get back to the way that they were before the damage occurred.
An average loan is held for a maximum of 30 years with 4% interest.
It's my understanding that the current bank rates are pretty high, so this is a direct federal loan program. It is the only disaster program in existence, and we have a lot of flexibility in trying to work with the applicants and trying to accommodate the repairs to the property.
Once SBA receives the application, they screen for the borrower's ability to repay the loan.
Well, what we try to do is, number one, these are loans, so we do have to make a determination as to whether or not they can be repaid, and what we try to do is look at what the applicant's total amount of income is, what their total obligations are on a monthly basis, and try to come up with a small payment for them, which would not create a financial hardship for them.
Though SBA representatives have left Saipan, they are still taking applications through the mail. Residents can write to the Small Business Administration, P.O. Box 58C, Agana, Guam 96910, or you can call them at 671-472-7276. Again, that phone number is 671-472-7276. The deadline is October 18th. In San Jose, Nanette Miranda for KMCV News.
After the break, we'll be flowing into the day's court proceedings.
And the chamber teaches businesses how to check for bad checks. That story next. Local businessmen John T. Sablan and Jose C. Terlahi entered into a plea agreement in Guam District Court yesterday on 3 charges related to the October 92 shipment of guns and ammunition between Guam and Saipan. The men will be sentenced on November 19th. According to District Court spokesperson May Blas, Sablan and Terlahi pled no contest to count 3 of their indictment, failure to notify a common carrier of delivery of ammunition for shipment. The government will move to dismiss the other 2 counts at sentencing. Count number 1 was conspiracy to transport ammunition in interstate and foreign commerce with intent to commit a felony. Count number 2, transportation of ammunition. Sablan was represented by attorney David Lujan, Terlahi by Ignacio Garcia. Mark Condas represented the government. According to Blas, the maximum sentence for the lone charge is 5 years incarceration, coupled with a $250,000 fine.
A San Vicente man is in custody this evening charged with the sexual abuse of a minor. 49-year-old Antonio Cepeda was stopped early this morning in Chalan Lao Lao for his unusual driving behavior. Police say Cepeda was charged with reckless driving and driving under the influence. The Division of Youth Services was brought into the case when a 14-year-old girl was in the car with Cepeda. While in DYS's custody, the teen revealed that Cepeda sexually abused her. DYS worker Eloise Fury says the girl is still in their custody pending further investigation.
Continuing with court news, former radio personality Cody Young has been released from jail. Young appeared in Superior Court today to have his $800,000 bail reduced. He was arrested over the weekend for theft and forgery charges related to the misuse of someone else's credit card. His bail was originally set at $750,000, but another $50,000 bail was tacked on from his first case, which is also connected with a check forgery. The court ruled this morning to lower that bail to $100,000, $50,000 cash, and $50,000 in property.
Cody Young is just one of a growing number of suspects accused of defrauding local companies of thousands of dollars. In this economic climate, businesses can ill afford such losses. Nanette Miranda reports on the number of ways businesses can protect themselves from worthless checks.
Brenda Kalalaman, who pleaded guilty to 51 criminal counts of theft and check forgery last month, is now serving 3 years in prison. The businesses she stole from, though, are short not only of the money, but the merchandise as well. They don't see a dime until she finds a job and starts making court-mandated restitution payments, $100 a month, until the $5,000 to $7,000 tab is paid off.
It's a very long process to prosecute someone for bad checks. And typically, it's an even longer process to be repaid. So prevention is better than the remedies you have after the fact.
Prevention is the name of the game here at this check fraud seminar sponsored by the Saipan Chamber of Commerce. Ken Bass of the Commonwealth Credit Bureau says education is the best defense against losses.
This type of information in the hands of the merchant will reduce their exposure. It's knowledge, and with knowledge they can help themselves avoid being defrauded.
One bad check may only be for a small amount, but several bad checks could mean a huge dent to a company's cash flow or profit.
Over the last couple of years, it's certainly exceeded $1 million worth of bounce checks that I've seen on Saipan.
For 1 year.
I think it took over maybe a couple of year period. But that's just what has come to our office. That's not the total number of checks bouncing.
One of the safeguards businesses can install is a check verification system. Insert the check through this box and punch in the amount the check is for.
Essentially, the machine asks the question, does this person have any bounce checks anywhere on Saipan with any Commonwealth Credit Bureau members? If so, it will decline the check.
Other less technical tips include making sure that, first of all, there are perforations on the check. Secondly, the first 2 numbers on this upper right-hand corner are between 1 and 12. There are only 12 Federal Reserve districts. 3, magnetic numbers should be flat and dull. And lastly, high-numbered checks aren't as risky. These tips won't guarantee that a bad check won't slip by, but at least the risk is lowered. In San Roque, Nanette Miranda for KMCV News.
Check your family and friends for any cute girls running around. The Little Miss Philippine Contest Coordinator, Zenny Cristobal, is looking for contestants.
All the Filipinos, we would like to invite all the Filipinos on the island and everybody else, the Chamorros, the Palawans, the Carolinians, the Yapis, the Truckies, the Koreans, the Japanese, everybody else, the Carolinians. We would like you to come to La Fiesta San Roque, right in front of Nico Hotel. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, September 5, that's Sunday.
The money raised goes to the Filipino Community Association. Philcom uses the proceeds to fund community-oriented projects such as the recently built picnic pavilion in Susupi.
Did someone say picnic? The big event going on this weekend is the annual Labor Day picnic at Micro Beach. Organizer Robert Guerrero says a lot of fun will be packed into the afternoon and everyone's invited to share in the event.
Activities or ceremonies going to kick off at 10 o'clock with numerous guest speakers ranging from the governor all the way down to myself, the personal officer, and of course the Civil Service Commission. Followed by games for kids and for adults alike, and games also for cabinet members of the governor.
The picnic on Sunday will take place from 10 to 4 p.m. Joining us now is long shot Willie. Willie, you think you're going to be participating in that picnic on Sunday?
I like to try, but there's some championship games going on, basketball games that Sunday, so I don't know.
All right. I'll eat a few ribs for you.
Well, we got more upsets in the U.S. Open, and the Giants beat the Braves. Plus, Nico and Diamond Hotel are going to the finals. It was the final day for the round-robin playoffs in the Inter-Hotel League. Nico was going in undefeated, and PIC was winless in the playoffs. It was their last chance for the brass ring. Going into the game, Daiichi had a win under the belt and needed to beat PIC to have a chance to play the championship game. PIC had the lead throughout the second half, but during crunch time they had to force their shots. Free throws was their problem as they started to miss them and let Daiichi into the game. A lot of fouls were made in the final minutes and Daiichi was making them charity shots. In the last minute, Alegre forced a shot to cut the lead to 1. PIC came back, but Alegre would not give up as he makes another layup within 29 seconds left and down 2 points. But this time PIC settled down and made the free throws to win the game 79-76. In the second game, Diamond needed a win against the undefeated Nico to go into the championship game since Daiichi had lost their game. Nico was using their inside game to keep the score close. The bench played a large role for Nico because they knew win or lose, they are going to the championship game. Diamond's big man Manolto was doing it all, including three-pointers. He can dribble and take it to the baseline with a turnaround jump shot. His partner, Rendon, the point guard, was always in the right place to make the basket. In the second half, it was all Diamond as they beat Nico 87-65. These two teams will meet again to see who will get the title for the Inter-Hotel Basketball League. We then talked to player coach Edgar Miranda about the game.
Actually, we have a change a lot. Like for example, in our defense, before our game between the Daiichi, it's quite different for this Nico because in this Nico we have to change our moves, we have to change our defense, our offense. So our defense now is very good. Basketball is not only a physical game; it's very wise game. Also, you have to use your talent, or like the physical and mentality.
In other local sports, for the first time, sailors from Saipan's Over the Reef Yacht Club have been invited to participate in the 13th annual South Pacific Championships in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. The club has elected to send a single team. Tony Stearns will be representing Saipan as skipper, while Joe Husline will be performing crew responsibilities.
Good evening and welcome back to our weather report. For this evening's forecast, expect mostly cloudy skies with isolated light to moderate showers, becoming partly cloudy after midnight, winds light and variable, and a low temperature in the mid-70s. Our seas tonight will be slight to moderate 2 to 4 feet, surf conditions 3 to 5 feet on southeastern clockwise through northern exposures, and 1 to 3 feet elsewhere. Our tide table again indicates 2 sets of high and low tides. Our first tide will take place up at 8:47 this evening with a high of 2.3 feet, and the tide will drop to a low of 7/10 of a foot at 2:49 early tomorrow morning. And the second set will be up again with a high of 2.2 feet just hours later at 8:42, and the tide again will drop to a low of 5/10 of a foot at 2:54 tomorrow afternoon. The sun will set at 6:32 this evening, and sunrise tomorrow morning will be as early as 6:09. And for tomorrow's forecast, expect the same we have today under partly cloudy skies, with isolated light showers becoming mostly cloudy with isolated light to moderate showers and isolated offshore thunder showers by midday, and expect high in the upper 80s. And that's all for our weather report.
If you were watching our video and wondering where that came from, that's Penatang Beach Park in Rota. It's a really pretty place to visit. We have a few programming changes that we'd like to pass along to you. Taxing issues at 7 o'clock. This is Glenn Mackay's special last year on the federal government's efforts to gain access to the NMI's locally generated tax records. This was our lead story, and this goes into a bit more detail about it, gives you some background on this issue. And following that, we'll be celebrating our story, the regularly scheduled program at 7, and that will air at 7:30. We have just a few messages to pass along to a few members of our staff. To Mario Benito, get well soon, hurry back to work, and to Manette Pestano, happy birthday. Enjoy your evening, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Just.